You're live, Madam Chair.
Good morning, everyone. We are now beginning the December IAC meeting, and I want to welcome everyone to the meeting and welcome our board. And I do believe we have a quorum that's been vetted. Elliot, you want to, or Mr. Schoen, would you verify that?
Just do a quick roll call for the record.
All right, please.
I don't see Ms. O'Bara.
Here.
Secretary Ellington, Secretary Churchill.
Here.
Senator Eberhardt. Ms. Eberhardt. I saw you before. Mr. Gibbons. I see you, Mr. Gibbons.
Here, yeah.
Senator Casemayor.
Here.
Thank you. Secretary McCord.
Here, thank you.
Mr. Lombardo is not going to be on. Senator Lala. And Dr. Salmon.
Here.
You do have a quorum. You have 7 members present.
And I do see Ms. Eberhardt. Good morning.
Hi, Karen. I was here and then it kicked me off, but I'm back.
Well, we're glad you're back. All right. Well, let's get started. We have a very robust agenda today. I would like to see if we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Secretary Churchill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gibbons. All in favor, please say or show aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to the CIP process overview, which is in section 2 of your minutes. And Kim Spivey, who is the Deputy Director of Administration, will begin this presentation. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon and Commission. I'm going to, before we have the LEAs come and present their testimony to the IAC, I'm going to give a brief overview of the CIP process, and then following that, Arabia will come forward with the recommendations to the IAC. As you know, the needs in Maryland are many, and the LEAs are working on projects all the time. These projects are submitted to the IAC during each phase of planning, design, construction, and completion. Projects begin with LP, or what is termed local planning approval, which is an agreement by the state that the project need exists and that a certain project scope is supported and is eligible for funding once the project design is sufficiently progressed to be able to use state funding when it is awarded. Design is currently a local project cost and is ineligible for state funding, although this is by policy, not statute, and could be considered for change. IAC staff have been exploring some options to include design costs as eligible, which would particularly benefit low wealth counties in regards to project development, and will bring proposals to the IAC in the coming months. Once an LEA has designed project that can demonstrate with a project schedule and a financial draw schedule that it will be able to utilize funding in the coming year, it becomes eligible for construction funding. This is typically for major projects only. Capital maintenance or systemic projects may be eligible before design if they have a small enough scope to be designed and executed within the year. The CIP process begins each summer with the issuance of the CIP instructions to the LEAs. It is during this time that the ISD staff begins conducting site visits for potential school projects. Then in December, the IAC is required to make approvals of 75% of the preliminary budget amount as established by the governor, which is anticipated this year at $280 million. The FY 2022 project funding request totals $710 million and greatly exceed the expected $280 million CIP budget. It's essential that the IAC allocate every available state dollar to projects that will begin construction during FY 2022. In March, the IAC will make a recommendation for 90% of the capital budget to the governor and the General Assembly. Finally, after May 1st, the IAC is required to allocate 100% of the available funding. Before I stand for questions, I want to note that there are a couple of LEAs who submitted written testimony but will not be presenting virtually today. Their testimony can be found on pages 14 through 17 in your agenda. There are also a couple of LEAs that submitted their testimony after the revised agenda was sent. That testimony was emailed to you this morning and will be included in a revised agenda that will be posted to the website after this meeting. I stand for questions.
Questions for Kim on this process? Hearing none. Kim, thank you for that. I think that's really a great cue set to what we're going to be doing today and shows the background. Really appreciate that. We're going to start. I'm going to turn this over to Director Gorel, who can introduce our people that are going to be providing presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first county is Charles County, and I don't have the list of the presenters. I apologize. So if we can bring them into the room, we'll let them introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Heim. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Supporting Services for Charles County Public Schools. This morning, I am joined by Steve Andritz, who's our Director of Planning and Construction. First, to make sure to be brief and respect your time, I'd like to thank everyone for this opportunity, for us to have an opportunity to make an appeal to you for our CIP funding. And at this point, I would turn it over to Mr. Andritz.
Good morning. As Mr. Heim mentioned, my name is Steve Andritz, and I'm the Director of Planning and Construction. I'd like to say good morning to the IAC members, to Dr. Salmon, to Mr. Gorel, and to the IAC staff. We're here appealing several projects, and we gave you an agenda, and I'm going to hit some highlights on those. So starting with the first project, Benjamin Stoddard, the state is recommending funding in 3 increments, and we are asking that you continue to support the funding, full funding that is shown. We are 26% complete on construction. The new addition portion of the building is set to occupy in July of 21, with the rest of the building coming online in August of 22. This will be the 3rd year of construction funding. And additionally, we did submit extra contracts for additional state funds that were unutilized for the asbestos removal work and a temporary parking lot that we had to do to be ahead of the construction for the new addition. Our second project is Dr. Gustavus Brown Elementary School, which was shown as a systemic project for open space enclosure. It was just recently, with the revisions, converted to a limited renovation. So the actual number went up slightly of what the state share will be. It went from 3.6 to 3.75. The county has their construction funds program to start in FY22. We are 95% design complete. The DD set was sent to MSDE in November because it was not yet a state-funded project, and we will be ready to submit to DGS the CDs as soon as we get comments from MSDE. We have a swing space school we're going to utilize to move these kids out so that we can do the appropriate asbestos removal as well as open space enclosure work, some systems work, and security enhancements that need to be done. The third project is Eva Turner Elementary School. This is a full renovation of an existing 1970s open space elementary school. We are 70% complete on construction right now. We plan to occupy July 12th of 21. And to date, we have paid the contractor, construction contractor, $14.9 million, as well as payments to the asbestos and the industrial hygienist. State funding on this job is $10.7 million. This will be our 3rd year of funding, construction funding, and the state is recommending $732,000, which would bring the total share to date to just over $3,081,000. So there is a net still owed to the county of over $7 million. This is a significant issue that needs to be addressed. The next project is John Hanson Middle School roof replacement. We got our local construction funds to support this project in FY19. We have asked for this project to be supported from the state in FY19, FY20, FY21, and now FY22. we would still request support for this systemic project. This is our highest priority roof project. The next project is McDonough High School. It is a security enhancements as well as a performing arts upgrade. This project got planning approval in 19, and we have asked for construction funding in 20, 21, and 22. The local construction funds are set to come into play in FY22. There are several spaces in the building that need to be renovated. One of the things we're doing here is including an elevator. The building has 3 levels and it does not have an elevator. It has a ramp system. So there are several additional spaces that need to be renovated in order to make the functionality of the elevator work. But there are also several spaces where we are not going to fully renovate. For example, the auditorium or some connecting spaces where the old office was that is now lobby space that will receive some finish upgrades but not full renovation. We are intending to work with a number that is close to what the state approved on the 19 for 25,000 square feet of renovation. We're doing 25,665. This was revised with an exhibit in the submission, the amended submission. Additionally, it's 12,757 square feet of new space for the performing arts wing, and the support was for 12,000 from the planning approval. We're asking that these numbers be utilized, the new numbers, as this has not been funded and construction funding locks in the approvals. Next, project 6 is our back to McDonough. We are 97% designed on that. We got DGS approval of a combined DD/CD submission already. So we are fully designed on that project. The next project is Westlake Roof. It is 97% designed. Local construction funds are in place in FY22. This is our 3rd year of request for funding, FY20, FY21, FY22. Next project is Indian Head Boiler. Design will begin in February. Local construction comes up in FY22, and this is our 3rd year of request for this. Request number 8 is a kindergarten addition for J.P. Ryan Elementary School. We're 95% designed on this. The DDs were approved by DGS. The CDs were submitted to DGS on 12/3. We got planning approval in FY19. Construction has been requested in FY20, FY21, and now FY22. Local construction funds were approved for this in FY21. This is needed because of significant growth that occurs right around the school. We don't exactly have a campus setting here, but we're very close. But we have 3 new developments that have occurred in the last 3 to 4 years, plus another one coming online that directly surround this school. So this is an absolute need. Additionally, it supports the full-day kindergarten program. So providing the permanent spaces that are necessary for a state-mandated program that happened a number of years ago. The next project, number 9, Malcolm Full-Day Kindergarten, 95% design. DDs are approved by DGS. CDs were submitted to DGS 12/3. Local planning approval was FY19. Local construction was FY21. Request for construction has been FY21, FY20, and FY22. This is also a needed improvement for full-day kindergarten and for permanent spaces, as this is a 1950s building that was renovated in the 80s. The next project, T.C. Martin Elementary School. This is for a full renovation of a 1960s building that was a prototype that has not had any renovations and needs renovations. It lacks programmatic spaces and gym spaces. Additionally, we have 6 portables at this school, so we have a significant number of students that are outside the building in portable classrooms. We intend to begin design. The funds for design were awarded by the county for us in FY21, and we just finished awarding a contract. The board approved architectural services contract for us on the 8th earlier this week. So we intend to award this and begin design immediately. This would be a 1st-year construction request. The next project is a new elementary school, Elementary 23. Local design funds were issued in FY21. Again, this would fall in the same category with the A&E services that were just approved by our board on the 8th. We intend to move forward with this immediately in January. This is a new site given to us by a developer. It is surrounded by a development that is called Highlands Neighborhood, which is part of a much larger planned unit development known as St. Charles. St. Charles is ultimately 25,000 units, but in this neighborhood that surrounds it, there's 718 single-family and townhouse units, And additionally, the plan unit development still has 7,500 units to develop. So we have continued growth all around this. We have new neighborhood right across the street. That's another section of St. Charles. So we need this school to move forward for capacity. We would intend to build a 766 seat SRC school that would be about 95,000 square feet. In the suggested comments that we've gotten from the IAC, it says we justify a 40,000 square foot building, which is unrealistic and will not work for a new school. And then the final project we're appealing for construction funding on is General Smallwood, which is a systemic for roof and HVAC. We got local design funds in FY21. We intend to start that design in February. We were, interestingly enough, issued a U status on this project, which was not a category we had ever seen before. And it said that meant that the IAC had comments. We've been working through with IAC staff on those issues. And we believe they've all been addressed, and it should be changed to a B status and look to be funded. Some general comments we want to continue to talk about. Charles County is a growth county. We have, as mentioned, the planning unit development, which is St. Charles Community. It has 7,500 units left to develop that are still actively going. We have the town of La Plata, which is just to the south of St. Charles, which has 5,000 plus units that they're going to add in the next 10 years. County commissioners are also changing their adequate public facilities process. There will be a vote on that next week on the 15th, where we anticipate they will approve changes, which will allow more development than what we have now. We have seen in the last 4 years, 400 plus student increase each year. We were expecting that much this year, but obviously due to the pandemic, that has changed. We are looking at the projections for next year, going back up to our levels of 2019 plus 300 students. So we're expecting growth to go back. We're still trying to address our aging buildings. We also have the balance of capacity needs for growth. So the 10-year funding average does not work for Charles County. And I wanted to highlight that in FY16, Charles County received $12.8 million, which was coinciding with the final year funding for St. Charles High School, as well as this first year funding for a systemic and a kindergarten edition. In FY19, we received $14.8 million from the state for the final year funding of Dr. Mudd Elementary School renovation and the new Billingsley Elementary School, as well as some funding for a kindergarten edition. Then in FY20, we received $13.9 million for the first year funding for, the major chunk of that was for the first year funding for Benjamin Stoddard Middle School. We have a trend here that shows when we are finishing projects that the state is meeting their commitment. This is really shows as a need, as I mentioned with Eva Turner. Because with Eva Turner not fully funding, that $7 million that's still owed will handicap the school system and the county for future years. As an example, if we stay with that 10-year funding average and we don't get any additional money towards Eva Turner, next year, 3/4 of what's available for us under that 10-year funding average will go to Eva Turner to pay off what's owed by the state at a building that will have been open for an entire year. So the county will be carrying the state's share for an entire year. That creates a hardship for the county and creates a hardship for the school system so that we are not able to move forward with new major projects. So all of that being said, we are looking to maintain our buildings. We're striving to do the best we can to update them, to keep them in working order through systemics, through renovations. But the additional funding that's needed, the support for systemics, if we don't get those will hurt the school system. So that's what I have, Mr. Hyman. Anything you wanted to add? If not, I'll turn it over for questions.
No, I'd just like to echo Mr. Andrews' concerns with the 10-year average and moving forward with anticipated growth in this county, that could potentially handicap us and make it difficult for us to keep up with capacity that's going to be occurring at our schools. And again, we thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you both. Appreciate your testimony. Do we have any quick questions for Charles County? All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to move on now to Montgomery County. Good morning, Dr. Smith.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon. I'm Jack Smith, Superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools. For those of you I don't know, I know most of you, so it's good to see you, Linda, for example, and others.
Hey there.
I have with me today two of our staff members who are invaluable to this process, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning, all. My name is Seth Adams. I'm the Director in the Department of Facilities Management for MCPS. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Adrienne Karamihas. I'm the Director of Capital Planning and Real Estate for MCPS.
So, Dr. Salmon, if you'd like us to proceed, we're ready for some brief remarks and then to answer any questions or listen to any comments.
Please, Dr. Smith, proceed.
Thank you. So once again, good morning to all of you, and I hope you are all well. We appreciate the opportunity to present this appeal to the IAC staff recommendations that were made on state funding for Montgomery County Public Schools for FY22 capital budget requests. As you met, Seth Adams and Adrienne Karamihas are with us today, and are an integral part of our program. You have in your possession copies of the testimony, and I would just like to make a few points regarding our appeal. Our state aid request is $76.05 million. This amount is based on the current eligibility of projects approved by the Montgomery County Council in May of 2020. As a result of the construction delays to many capital projects by the County Council in our adopted FY21 through 26 capital improvements program, this request is considerably less than our previous requests for state funding. In the completion dates of the Board of Education's requested FY22 capital budget and amendments to the FY21 through 26 CIP are approved as requested, and our state CIP request for FY23 will be more in line with previous requests. So we'll be asking for more money next year is what we're saying, because the council slowed us down last spring. The IAC staff recommendation is to fund $44.29 million of the $76 million request. On November 17th, we received the annual issues letter that identified outstanding questions and issues as a result of the designee's review of our state CIP submission. Our responses to those questions were submitted on December 4th, and therefore we believe that there's adequate justification for all of the funds included in the request, and we are appealing the $30.12 million balance that was not recommended for state funding. On November 24th, we received a list of construction projects known as the ABC list. Some of our construction projects on that list were U-coded due to outstanding questions or issues that needed to be resolved. As previously noted, staff provided all the information requested in the annual issues letter, and therefore we believe the U-coding for those projects should be upgraded. The ABC list did categorize two of our systemic roof projects, priority 13 and 14, with a decoding due to the two roofs not reaching the age requirement to be eligible for state funding. Therefore, as part of our revised FY22 state CIP request submission, we have included two new systemic roof projects to replace the two projects that were coded D. All information required for these two new systemic roof projects was included in our responses forward on December 4th, and therefore we believe that these two projects should be funded as requested. Attached to our testimony is our appeal, which includes planning approval for 13 projects, construction funding for 2 projects, and the replacement of 2 systemic roof replacement projects. Our appeal does include funding for the 2 new systemic roof replacement projects, which total $1.849 million. Therefore, our appeal, which reflects our revised request, totals $31.97 million. As you know, MCPS has had steady increases in enrollment since 2007-8. The current COVID pandemic, however, has impacted our student enrollment. Official September 30th, 2020 enrollment is 160,575 students, a one-year decrease of pre-K students 4,703, pre-K through 12 students decreased 4,703 students. Nationwide, school systems and statewide certainly are seeing reduced enrollments in 2021, especially in the lower grades as homeschooling and private schools that offer in-person instruction gain student enrollment. We are confident, however, that many of these students will return to our schools once in-person learning and instruction returns. And we have done quite a bit of demographic and research on our students, their withdrawal codes. And so we're not just guessing about this. We really are looking at who's there and who's getting services in various places. So we expect a lot of these students will return. From the 2010-2011 school year, student enrollment increased by more than 17,000 students. Total school system enrollment is projected to increase to 170,000 plus students by 26-27 school year. This projection represents a slight slowdown in enrollment growth, in part due to the continued decline in resident births, which result in lower kindergarten enrollment and smaller cohorts of students as they progress through the school system. In addition, as we said, our student enrollment projections do account for the current COVID-19 pandemic. We believe, however, that this decline in enrollment will be temporary, and therefore our capacity projects are still warranted and must remain on their construction schedule. And I will note, even though we have had this decline this year, the vast majority of our schools are still near, at, or over 100% capacity, with some being at 150 and 200% capacity. That's out of 208 schools, the vast majority of them are at that absolute upper level, and we have no highly under-enrolled schools, none. It's crucial that the state aid request be improved to meet the substantial capital funding needs of MCPS. We have significant construction needs now more than ever, and we need strong financial support from the state for the school construction program. MCPS students comprise approximately 18% of the state's total enrollment, as illustrated in the chart on page 2 of our testimony, and the state funding share of our capital program has not kept pace with our enrollment growth. If we have any hope in Montgomery County of closing our capacity gap and addressing our aging facilities, it's essential that we receive additional state dollars. The Board of Education, the county government, and I, along with our state delegation, will continue to work together to advocate for an increase in state construction funding overall to enable all counties, and especially Montgomery County, to receive its fair share of the statewide allocation. We urge the state to increase the overall school construction funding and provide the aid required to address the longstanding capacity needs and program requirements we have presented as part of our budget request. Supporting document and appeal information is also provided. Thank you very much for this opportunity to appear before you and for your past support in this program. We appreciate everything you do and hope you remain well in the coming days. And we are ready to respond to questions or any comments that committee members may have. Thank you, Dr. Salmon.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Questions for Dr. Smith? All right, hearing none, thank you very much for your testimony today. Now we will welcome Dr. Curry from Calvert County.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon and members of the committee. We appreciate the opportunity and welcome. We bring greetings from Calvert County and the Calvert County Board of Education. A few things about Calvert County that we want to be able to point out that we're fairly proud of is that 4 years ago we launched on we joined on to Future Ready, which meant getting ready to be highly technical and to use the technology in education. But we began with our pipeline. At the time, we had, I remember asking our IT folks, how much capacity should we have in internet? And they said, at least 2 gig. And we ended up investing in year 1 on a 10 gig pipeline. Then we started phasing in 1-to-1 computers. And actually this year, we were scheduled to be complete, grades 3 through 12, with our 1-to-1 computer initiative. So we transitioned fairly readily into the all online instruction, which was pretty much mandated by our present COVID situation. I do want to point out that school districts have a lot of expenses that they didn't have before in Calvert County as a result of COVID. We spent almost $175,000 on PPE just in last fiscal year. And this fiscal year, we have made that more than $1 million. So there's a lot of expenses one never imagined that they would have in order to try to bring children into school. We have we were in hybrid mode for pre-K through 2 before Thanksgiving, and we're aiming to be in hybrid for 3 through 5 starting this week. But my board did not feel comfortable with that, and therefore that's been postponed. Hopefully we'll get back to a hybrid plan in January. Lastly, I want to point out how proud we are of how we take care of our facilities in Calvert County. We received a 95% rating from the state of Maryland in the 2020 statewide maintenance effectiveness report. And as far as I can see, it's that's among the top 5 school systems in Maryland. Take great pride in how we take care of our buildings and how we make them last and how energy efficient we are as well. That being said, still with the age of many of them, we have a lot of projects. Our funding, initial funding has been supportive of just one of our 5 projects in this year's CIP. I'm going to hand it over to Shachita Warner, our Director of Construction, who will take you through that list.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. Good morning, Dr. Salmon and members of the IAC. We appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss and review Calvert County's funding request for the FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program. There are 5 projects that encompass our FY 2022 CIP. We had actually made a revision. We initially had 6 projects, but we've scaled that back down to 5 because we do understand that there are funding constraints. We appreciate the IAC staff 75% recommendations and understand that budgetary constraints are the reason that 4 of our 5 project requests have been deferred. Today, we'd like to take the opportunity to highlight the importance of all of these projects, not only to assure the level of support currently projected, but also to request that you reconsider approving the 4 projects in the B category right now and funding them fully. Of the 5 requests, 4 are systemic renovations focused largely on HVAC. As Calvert County's inventory continues to age, systemic projects become increasingly important. We've always known that systemics are a key component to operating our buildings effectively and efficiently, but never has it become more apparent than now. In light of COVID-19, we must ensure that our HVAC systems are fully operational and sufficient outside air and ventilation is delivered within instructional spaces. Our first project request is for the first year of funding for the Beach Elementary School Replacement Project. Original construction of the existing building dates to 1953, with subsequent additions in 1971, 1980, and a kindergarten addition in 2006. We appreciate the IAC's commitment to this project through planning approval in FY 2021, as well as the IAC staff's recommendation for approval of funding in FY 2022. The project recently completed design development and we're proceeding with the construction document phase. The total construction cost will be $28,750,000 with a state allocation of $14,855,000 over a 2-year period. We expect to break ground summer of 2021 and the schedule and cash flow projections indicate that the full FY 2022 request of $10,666,000 will be critical to keep pace with construction. Moving on to our second request, this is for the second and final year of funding for the Southern Middle School HVAC Equipment Replacement Project. The associated work is divided over 2 summers, with the first phase scheduled to start summer of 2021. The total construction budget for this project is $6.5 million, with a state share of $3,339,000. We previously received state funding in the amount of $1,840,000, and receiving the balance of funding associated with the scope of work is crucial. We respectfully request that the remaining balance of $1,499,000 be approved so that we may proceed with the project. Our third request is a systemic renovation project at Calvert Elementary School, consisting of replacement of HVAC equipment dating back to the 1964 building, the original building, and the 1974 addition. The project scope includes replacement of the 1964 roof, which is original to the building as well. The existing equipment and the roof that encompass the project scope are 46 to 56 years old, well past their remaining useful life. The new HVAC equipment will be energy efficient and operate via digital direct controls or DDC. A total of $2,906,000 is required, with a state share of $1,487,180. Our fourth request is for another HVAC equipment replacement project, this one at Huntingtown Elementary School. This project will include replacement of 5 DX rooftop units that serve the cafeteria, the media center, and classrooms located in the central portion of the building. The unreliable equipment is nearly 20 years old and will be replaced with energy-efficient equipment operated via DDC controls. The project scope also includes replacement of constant volume reheat coils that serve other classroom areas but are inadequately sized. A total of $1.4 million is required for the project with a state share of $715,500. And finally, our fifth and final request is for an HVAC systemic renovation project at Plum Point Middle School. The 3 DX rooftop units, 11 air handling units, and 100 BAV boxes are original to the 1992 building. They experience frequent problems and don't adequately control humidity. The VAV boxes are non-fan powered, pneumatically controlled, and have been repaired numerous times by our maintenance department. Because they're unable to be retrofitted, they need to be replaced and will be replaced with the project scope. All of the new equipment will be energy efficient and operate via DDC controls. Due to the large scope, the project will be phased over 2 summers and require a total of $3,075,000 with a total state allocation of $2,120,000. Our funding request for the first year in FY 2022 is $1,590,000. In closing, we appreciate the support the IAC has given to Calvert County in the past. Your continued support will ensure that Calvert County can provide safe, healthy, and well-maintained facilities for our staff and students for many years to come. We thank you, and we will take any questions you may have at this time.
Questions for Calvert County? Thank you very much, Calvert County. Stay well and safe. I'd like to welcome Dr. Monica Goldston. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And once again, good morning, Dr. Salmon, and to members of the Interagency Commission on School Construction. My name is Dr. Monica Goldston. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Prince George's County Public Schools, and I'm here with staff members Sean Matlock, who's our Director of Capital Programs, and there's Elizabeth, and Ms. Elizabeth Chason, who's our Capital Improvement and Program Officer. Thank you for inviting us this morning and for the 5 projects that received an A or a U funding status. Thank you very much. In FY22, we requested $34.3 million in state funding for 4 out of 5 projects, and the recommendation is to fund the full amount for these requests. We are, however, appealing the first 75% CIP recommendation for the Suitland High School project. We requested $11.7 million and received a recommendation of $0 for this project. Suitland High School is scheduled to begin construction in February 2022, utilizing FY22 state and county funding. Lack of state construction funding in FY22 will delay construction for approximately 6 months, since construction bidding cannot take place in FY22 without any adequate funds. The existing Suitland High School building currently houses our Center for Visual and Performing Arts program, as well as more than 1,500 students in their regular comprehensive high school program. The 1950s era made building and the Creative Visual and Performing Arts converted middle school building are both in poor condition. Temporary structural remediation work will begin next week in order to ensure the safety of the students and staff until the new building is constructed. This work is being performed using county funds. Delays in construction will delay occupancy of the new building and demolition of the structurally compromised building. The Prince George's County Public Schools 2015 updated Facility Condition Index assessment ranked the CVA building as one of the poorest, and it has continued to decline, impacting enrollment in that program. Our total request for FY22 is $46 million. The recommended $28 million plus $6 million in enrollment growth and relocatable classrooms, better known as EGRC funding, is less than our 10-year average allocation for the second year in a row. Because of this, each year our 10-year average continues to decline, even though we've been recognized as one of the LEAs with the greatest need. The annual allocation should be closer to 40 million each year, plus the annual EGRC funding to relieve overcrowding. While the state share is 70% of all eligible construction costs, the county must pay all of it up front. This includes non-eligible costs such as the cost of design, surveys, third-party permitting review, and other construction-related costs, which I know you know. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the county revenue has dropped and the county's allocation for school construction may be impacted. Therefore, PGCPS will need to rely more heavily on state funding to cover direct construction costs, as most county funding will not go to non-eligible soft costs related to the project. In conclusion, please consider increasing our Suitland High School construction funding allocation from $0 to $11.7 million, such that PGCPS can maintain the project construction schedule and to retain our 10-year average state funding allocation. I know that's a big request, but I do believe that Santa grants wishes. Thank you so very much. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Goldson. Do we have questions for Prince George's County? Seeing none, thank you very much. Good to see you. Everyone stay safe and well.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome Frederick County Schools to present. And Dr. Alban, it's good to see you this morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon. It's great to see you too.
Please proceed with your testimony.
Board President Jay Mason is going to take the lead this morning. Mr. Mason?
Good morning. I am Jay Mason, President of the Board of Education of Frederick County. Joining me today is Ms. Jan Gardner, County Executive for Frederick County, and Dr. Teresa Alban, Superintendent of Frederick County Public Schools. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about our request for capital funding for school construction. Dr. Alban will provide you with some of the specific information about this year's request, and you will see our FY22 capital funding request reflects our need to address both capacity issues as well as renovation and replacement of our older buildings. Frederick County Public Schools has an enrollment of 43,218 students, a loss of approximately 680 students from the September 2019 enrollments. However, this loss in enrollments reflects the impact of the pandemic on our enrollment rather than a downturn in the residential housing market or outmigration of families in Frederick County. For the 2020-21 school year, FCPS parents chose to delay enrollment of 122 pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students as compared to only 56 in the 2019-20 school year. In addition, parents chose to homeschool approximately 830 students in the 2020-21 school year, more than 4 times the number of students participating in home instruction during the 2019-20 school year. Finally, more than twice as many students withdrew from FCPS to enter private schools this year as compared to last year. We anticipate the majority of the additional 950 students who have delayed enrollment or withdrawn from FCPS will return to FCPS schools when we return to hybrid or complete in-school instruction program. The return of these students, combined with students from the continued growth of residential dwelling units in Frederick County, results in a projected enrollment for the 2021-22 school year of nearly 45,650 students. This demand continued funding to support our much-needed capacity, renovation, and replacement projects. FCPS operates and maintains 67 school buildings. These buildings total over 6.7 million square feet and occupies almost 1,500 acres. A significant number of our buildings are, in whole or part, 30 or more years old, and FCPS needs the continued support of the state for our capital funding requests. Frederick County is a fantastic place to live, and our students deserve the best learning environment to support their academic endeavors. While the pandemic has decreased enrollment slightly, the housing growth in the county, even throughout this pandemic, will certainly lead to increased student enrollment for the foreseeable future. FCPS has not experienced this level of anticipated growth since the 1990s. FCPS needs the continued partnership with the IAC and our county government to address both our need for new capacity and renovating or replacing our aging infrastructure. Our county executive is a staunch supporter of public education, and our county government continues to do its part to support our needs. I ask that the IAC support the entire FY22 budget capital improvement program request, which will help provide the needed infrastructure to support our students. At this time, I would like to introduce Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Albin. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. I'm Terry Albin, Superintendent, Frederick County Public Schools, and we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about our FY22 capital funding request. We are currently replacing Waverly Elementary School and the Rock Creek School. We are adding an addition to Oakdale Middle School, building a new Blue Heron Elementary School, as well as designing the replacement of Brunswick Elementary School. We greatly appreciate the state's support in the ongoing funding of the new and replacement schools and look forward to partnering with the state to address future capacity needs in our high residential growth areas of Frederick City, Linganore, Urbana, and Brunswick. Even with these projects I mentioned, a significant number of our buildings are in whole or part 30 or more years old. Many of these buildings are in areas of the county that are not experiencing growth. Renovations or replacements of these schools will not occur because of prioritizing funding to address capacity issues. Therefore, FCPS has developed a program utilizing the limited renovation as a way to specifically address these aging schools. We have identified Thurmont Elementary School as the first school to be modernized in our limited renovation program. This 65-year-old school has had no renovations except for minor systemic improvements since originally constructed. We are requesting both local planning approval and funding for the first phase of the Thurmont Elementary School limited renovation project. The IAC summary of recommendations as of December 10th indicates that the Thurmont Elementary School project is classified as a C project, deferred and not currently eligible for planning or funding recommendations. All the requested information about this project has been submitted to the IAC staff. Therefore, we respectfully request that both the local planning approval and funding in FY22 for this critically important project. Finally, we have included construction funding requests for the Brunswick Middle School roof replacement. We acknowledge the preliminary IAC staff recommendation to delay funding due to lack of available state construction funding and urge you to fund this project should additional funds become available over the next several months. The replacement of this roof is essential to the maintenance of the building, resulting in a high-quality, functional school, as well as extending the life of the building. We have worked to reduce school construction cost by using prototype designs, value engineering, and partnerships within our community. We have initiated our first CM at-risk project with the Brunswick Elementary School replacement and continue to work with our county executive and county council to find ways to fund other school construction projects, such as the addition in Oakdale Middle School. This addition was funded with local funds only and utilized a modified design build delivery method. Because of the success with this Oakdale Middle School project in reducing the typical cost of construction while also completing the project in an efficient and timely manner, we will continue to utilize the design build delivery method with the Thurmont Elementary School limited renovation project as well. We feel strongly that our ability to provide a proper academic and instructional program, as well as our students' ability to achieve high standards, depends on adequate school facilities. We ask that this commission continue to be an active partner with FCPS and Frederick County government and fully approve our FY22 school construction request. We have a reputation of excellence when it comes to maintenance of our buildings. We are recognized as fiscally responsible stewards of taxpayer funding. And we are a system that has been willing to look at innovative ways to reduce cost while still delivering projects. So we thank you very much for your consideration. And at this time, I would like to introduce our outstanding Frederick County Executive, Ms. Jan Gardner. We are very fortunate to have an elected official who has been an ardent supporter of education for her entire career. And I think you will be hard pressed to find a county executive who understands capital projects and capital funding more than Jan Gardner. Ms. Gardner.
Thank you, Dr. Alban. Good morning, Dr. Salmon and members of the IAC. It's nice to see you here today. I hope you're all doing well in these unusual times. I am pleased to join our President of the Board of Education and Dr. Alban to really express support for Frederick County Public Schools school construction request. We do have a great working relationship between the county and our school system. I support their established priorities, and I'm committed to providing the county local share of dollars. As noted, we do deliver on our projects. We are open to being innovative at both funding and design, and we have a reputation for good maintenance of our school construction projects, our old schools as well as our newer schools. Obviously, we have a great need for funding to keep our school construction program on track and moving forward to meet both capacity needs and to meet renovation needs. So I am concerned that so far our allocation is significantly less than what we've requested. It's only about 52% of what we have asked for. And so I really am appealing to you and asking you to reconsider to the extent you can to provide us with the additional money we need to make sure that we can keep our school construction program moving forward. In the current fiscal year, I have advanced 2 projects that we did not previously move them up. One was the addition to the Oakdale Middle School, which was the design build project that Dr. Alban mentioned, and also the construction of a new elementary school in the Lake Linganore area. We really are working hard to meet those capacity needs that we have and to balance that with the needs to maintain our schools. So I would appreciate your consideration for funding so that we can keep our maintenance and our school construction program moving forward. Frederick County has shown that it's committed to completing our school construction projects on time and on budget. We always know that money is limited. We have forward funded a significant amount of the state share, and so we are looking forward for that reimbursement. So just to conclude, I am asking you respectfully to increase our allocation and to help us keep our school construction program moving forward.
Thank you, Jan. Good to see you today too.
Nice to see you.
Any questions for Frederick County? All right, hearing none, thank you so much. Again, be well and stay safe. And now, just a reminder to make sure that you have your buttons on mute if you're not speaking so we can keep any feedback down. And I'd like to welcome Carroll County, and that would be Dr. Stephen Lockhart and his team, Mr. John O'Neill and others. Welcome.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon, Director Gorel, members of the IAC. Thank you so much for providing us the opportunity to join you virtually and to make our appeal. For everybody, I'm Steve Lockhart, Superintendent of Carroll County. As Dr. Salmon said, joining me today are John O'Neill, our Chief Operating Officer, and Ray Prokop, our Director of Facilities Management. I am aware that you've received our written testimony, and in the interest of your time, I don't want to read that back to you verbatim. We will leave that with you. I'd like to just summarize some of the highlights for you, and then we'd be happy to respond to any questions that you might have. First, we wanted to express our sincere appreciation for the continued commitment to our Carroll County Career and Technology Modernization Project. Based on our working draw schedule, the targeted funding for FY22 will keep that very important project on schedule. So thank you again. We recognize over the decades when the state commits to large projects like our Career and Tech Center, it impacts your ability to fund other smaller projects at the same level you may have in other years. Therefore, we know that we can't reasonably expect full funding of all of our other priorities. However, we are here to make an appeal for funding for the Winfield Elementary roof replacement project, which is also very important to us. The IAC recognized this project this fiscal year and committed $483,000 in initial funding. Thank you. Coincidentally, on your agenda today, you're formally recognizing a contract that we terminated for convenience on a related HVAC project at Winfield Elementary, where obviously we had a few issues. So we're in the process of taking the innovative step of combining this HVAC project with the roof replacement under a construction manager at risk approach, so that these two projects at the school can be coordinated together and completed by the end of next summer. We'd be able to end the disruptions the school has had to endure over the last couple of years and leave the facility in excellent condition for the following year. And so we need the state's commitment of the remaining funding on the roof replacement to accomplish this for the school. Therefore, we respectfully request that the IAC consider the additional funding for the Winfield Elementary School roof replacement project. And again, we're so appreciative of your time and attention, and certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there questions for Dr. Lockhart and Carroll County? All right, hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation. Everybody stay well and safe. And
thank you again for the opportunity.
You're very, very welcome. Good to see you today.
Thank you. You too.
Mr. Goral, do you want to explain that we do have Senator Lala on the line, although she doesn't show up on the grid?
Yes, she is on a phone with Cassandra. She can talk through Cassandra's setup. So she's hearing what's going on, and if she has something to say, she can talk through her phone and talk through Cassandra Viscera's link.
Okay, great. I think that was great to point out that we have the senator with us today. Good morning, Senator. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to welcome Anne Arundel County, and like to welcome the folks from Anne Arundel. I don't see Dr. Arlotto on the call, but I'll turn it over to whomever is representing Anne Arundel today. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam President. Dr. Arlotto was working with Jay to get through and connected so that he can make his presentation this morning.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Do you wish for us to proceed or allow Dr. Arlotto to join in, Madam Superintendent?
Oh, I'm sorry. He can certainly join in. I'm sorry. Please.
Yes, I'm sorry. He was working with your technology folks, I believe, to get into the meeting.
Bob, can you check with Jay and see where we are with that?
Madam Chair, it looks like Dr. Arlotto actually hasn't joined the meeting yet. It's not that we haven't been able to move him into this room. It's that he's not here yet. I do know that we are running a few minutes early. Anne Arundel was slated to about 10:10. Madam Chair, you're muted.
Sorry, Cassandra. Do we have Harford in the room yet?
We are running a little bit early, and I think in this virtual environment, folks are a little more used to being right on time. So we will send in any LEA that we get on deck as soon as we have them.
All right. Mr. Goral, is there something we can discuss in the interim as we pause?
We could come back to Carroll County, if you would like, Madam Chair, which is item number 4 on the agenda. And we just heard them say that it was a contract that they needed to rescind.
Thank you. Could we have Jamie present? Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm before you to deliver item number 4, an action item, Carroll County, Winfield Elementary, mechanical contract termination. Before I read the motion, I will provide some background and stand for questions before reading the motion at your direction. So on July 9, 2019, the IAC approved a contract between Carroll County Public Schools and Towson Mechanical, Inc. in the amount of $5.466000 million for the mechanical project at Winfield Elementary School. Carroll County Public Schools terminated the contract for convenience effective July 8, 2020. The contract termination occurred after 68% of the work had been completed and $3.166411 million of state funds had been expended. The cost of the contractual work completed is $3.900237 million. The revised state participation in the contract is $2.159127 million, and the revised local participation is $1.741110 million. The state will retain $1.007284 million for an additional contract to complete the work. Carroll County Public Schools intends to include the uncompleted scope of the mechanical project with the fiscal year 2021 CIP approved roof project at Winfield Elementary School. Staff recommends IAC approval of the contract termination and the revised state participation in the mechanical project at Winfield Elementary School. I'll stand for questions.
Questions for Jamie on this project? Ms. Eberhardt.
Yes, by doing this, they had requested that the Winford roof project be combined with another to do that. Does that mean then they would be able to get the money to do what they just asked us to for this combination project?
Madam Chair?
Yes, please, Mr.
This is kind of out of sequence. We haven't gone through the 75% approval yet, so we'll have to wait on that portion of it. And if we can approve this contingent on your approval of participating in this project, the Winfield Roof Project at the 75%, that would be the first step. Whether there are funds to increase to the full amount or not, that's a whole nother matter. But they do have local funds. That way they could proceed if they wished, and then they would be eligible for the reimbursement as funds became available, as so many other projects you've seen on the list today.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jamie? All right, Jamie, you want to read the motion, please?
All right, here goes. The motion is to approve the termination of the contract awarded to Towson Mechanical Incorporated for the systemic renovation project at Winfield Elementary and revisions to the state participation based on the percentage of contract completed.
We have a motion to approve.
I would make the motion contingent upon the approval of the 75%. Make sure that's clear in the motion.
Mr. Gordon, can we do that? I don't think that's what you meant. I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. The motion is simply to rescind this project, and then once that project is rescinded, then as we go through the 75%, they would be able to proceed with it tied to the other. So it's not contingent on that. I only mentioned that. I'm sorry that I caused the confusion.
All right, then I'll move that the motion be as read by Jamie, that the motion be approved. That's my motion.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Do we have a second? Mr. Gibbons, second. All in favor, go and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Schoen?
The motion carried unanimously. I didn't hear if Dr. Lala, Ms. Lala, Senator Lala.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schoen. And now we'll go back and welcome Dr. Orlado. So glad that you could get on. And right now we're about a minute before time, and that's unusual. But anyway, welcome. We're glad to see you, and we'll let you begin your presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And we're glad to be ahead of schedule. So thank you all. So good morning, Dr. Salmon and members of the commission. I'm George Orlado, the superintendent of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And I'm pleased to have this opportunity to meet with you to address our fiscal year 2022 capital improvement program request. I'd like to begin, of course, by thanking the commission for the continued support that Anne Arundel County has received. I'd also like to thank the IAC staff for its 75% recommendations that have been moved forward for your consideration. Every approval allows us to extend the useful life of our school facilities, address future enrollment growth, reduce the continued increase of backlog projects, and provide students and staff with equitable and effective learning environments. We, along with our valued partners in local government, continue to implement proven practices that support and improve our CIP, such as extending the local bond duration from 20 to 30 years, using prototype designs, developing sound life cycle costing, and utilizing value engineering. Along with these best practices, we continue to take into consideration our strategic facilities master plan, comprehensive maintenance plan, and educational facilities master plan in order to ensure that our planned projects will efficiently and they will remain efficiently and fiscally sustainable. We are committed to the strategic execution of this solid plan, and in order to keep our CIP well balanced and functioning, we are requesting your continued support and funding approval for the following projects. Our first appeal is for the remaining final year of construction funding for Crofton High School. This project is substantially complete and has been occupied by school staff since June 2020. Our next appeal is for the balance of funding for HVAC, fire safety, and electrical systemic projects at North County High School. As you are aware, construction has begun to replace the antiquated HVAC and fire alarm systems. In addition, this project includes electrical upgrades in support of our last Technology in Maryland Schools project. Next, we are requesting construction funding approval for kindergarten and pre-kindergarten additions at Van Bachlen and Sunset Elementary Schools. Both schools received local planning in FY21. Designs were reviewed and approved to bid. Van Bachlen Elementary is under construction and Sunset Elementary will go to bid shortly. Our next appeal is for first-year construction funding for Quarterfield Elementary, which also received local planning approval in FY21. Design documents have been submitted to the state for approval, and it is on schedule to bid in February of 2021. We're also requesting local planning approval and first-year construction funding for our next three priorities: Hillsmere Elementary, Rippling Woods Elementary, and Old Mill West High School. Hillsmere Elementary has not had a major renovation or large systemic renovation in 53 years and was approved for a replacement school. Design documents have been submitted to MSDE for review and approval. Rippling Woods Elementary, built in 1974, is an open space school that has had no major renovations and lies within the BWI Airport zoning district. Design documents have been submitted for approval. We've also received the MSDE letter of support for the regional special and alternate education program for this project. Old Mill West High School is part of the Old Mill Complex Master Planning Study that was completed in 2016 and was included as a high priority school development project in our 2015 Strategic Facilities Master Plan. The school will contain a regional special education program that will accommodate 80 students, bringing the proposed enrollment to 1,882. The site was approved by the State Clearinghouse in March of 2020. All required letters of support have been approved by MSDE, and final design documents have been submitted for review and approval. The anticipated bid date is February 2021. Next, we're asking for local planning approval for the new West County Elementary and Old Mill Middle School South. Both schools are currently in design, and we are working with MDP to obtain clearinghouse approval on both properties. Our last appeal is for local planning and construction funding approval for kindergarten and pre-kindergarten additions at Brockbridge and Mead Heights Elementary Schools. Both projects are in design, and we are continuing to submit the necessary design documents as required. On behalf of our 85,000 students, their parents, our employees, the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County, and the community we serve, I thank you for the opportunity today to discuss our FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program and how it supports Anne Arundel County and the state of Maryland. So with that, my staff and I will be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. Questions for Anne Arundel County? All right. Thank you very much for your presentation today. Please stay well, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all. Please be safe. Thanks for taking the time with us.
Absolutely. And now I'd like to welcome Harford County and Dr. Bolson and his team. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Cornell Brown, Assistant Superintendent for Operations. Cornell, you want to take it from here?
Yes. Good morning. Again, my name is Cornell Brown. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Operations. Joining us is Missy Valentino. She's a facilities planner. Before we go into our appeal, I just wanted to take some time to acknowledge the efforts of Mr. Gabriel and his staff. We always like to recognize the efforts of the IAC and our state fiscal authorities who have always been supportive of Harford County Public Schools, our students, and our community. I just wanted to take some time to just go over some of our enrollment information. Obviously, with COVID-19, the nation, the state, we're all experiencing some, decline in our student enrollment. In Harford County, our September 30th enrollment represents about a 1,083 student decrease, which is about 2.8%. Obviously, with the, COVID pandemic, parents are, making certain decisions that's impacting, our student enrollment. We see that we have about 947, a 947 student decrease in our elementary schools. Most of it, the larger portion of it is in our pre-K and kindergarten, grades, where we believe parents are making decisions to defer enrollment of, their students at those grade levels. We also saw a 210 student decrease in our middle schools. Our high schools, stayed pretty flat with a 10 student decrease. And then in our special ed, facility at John Archer, we did see a decrease of around 13 students. We believe that in the coming years, we'll see that turn and we'll have increases, but it's not likely that all students will return. But we're very hopeful that each year we'll see us returning to where we were pre-COVID. So today we'd like to highlight our priorities to the state for funding and present to the IAC our appeal. With this year's capital program in mind, and on behalf of the students and citizens of Harford County, I'd like to thank you for all that you do for Harford County and for considering our request. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Valentino, who will present our appeal. And Dr. Bolson and I, we're here to, respond to any questions that you have. So I thank you.
Good morning. I believe everyone has a copy of our FY22 CIP project testimony. This year, our FY22 CIP comprises of the planning approval for Homestead Wakefield Elementary School, the second year of funding for the Joppatown High School limited renovation project, the second year of funding for the Bel Air Middle School roof replacement project, and the roof replacement project at the Center for Educational Opportunity, and a central plant replacement at Abingdon Elementary School. We would like to start by thanking the IAC and their staff for the recommendation to fund the remainder of the state portion of the Joppatown High School limited renovation and the Bel Air Middle School roof replacement project, and for fully funding the roof replacement project at the Center for Educational Opportunity. However, we're here today to appeal to the IAC for state planning approval for the Homestead Wakefield Elementary School project and funding for the Abingdon Elementary School Central Plant project. Homestead Wakefield is our number one priority. This school is a 3-building elementary school located within Harford County's growth envelope. And for many years, the school has been at or above the state rated capacity. And due to the county's public adequate facilities ordinance, a moratorium has been in place on residential development within this attendance area for the past 3 years. A scope study was completed in the spring of 2007, resulting in the recommendation to renovate and add an addition to the Wakefield building to create one large school facility. Local planning approval was granted by the state for this project in FY12, with a waiver for a feasibility study. In 2014, Harford County government contracted with Jacobs to complete a facility condition assessment of all the county's owned facilities. This is schools, but it also included their parks and rec facilities, libraries, the sheriff's office, any of their government-owned facilities. That report placed Homestead Wakefield Elementary School fourth in total priority for the county. Unfortunately, local planning approval had to be rescinded in April of 2016 due to local fiscal constraints and the current county administration's conservative approach to support only one major project at a time. Homestead Wakefield has remained a top priority and was prioritized with all of the school system's needs and projects in process. 13 years have passed since the original scope study was completed. In August, we began working with Banta Campbell Architects to update the scope study, reevaluate the options, and recommend the most suitable long-term solutions for addressing the issues at the school. We have also contracted with Flow Analytics to evaluate the school's capacity and develop scenarios to balance enrollment. And recommendations from that project will also be incorporated into the design of the Homestead Wakefield project. HCPS plans to submit an updated scope study in February and move forward with the educational specification development process. And deferring this project will only further delay the ability of Harford County Public Schools to address the many needs of the school facility. Once the board-approved revised scope study is submitted to the IAC in February, we are requesting that the IAC reevaluate the project for local planning so we can continue the planning process to address the needs for the students, staff, and community of Homestead Wakefield Elementary School. Abingdon Elementary School central plant replacement was our number 5 priority. This project will replace the aging central plant equipment, including a 28-year-old failing 200-ton water-cooled chiller, cooling tower, and the 100-ton air-cooled chiller, the dual fuel-fired boilers and domestic water heater, related pumps, plumbing, and accessories, and upgrade the central plant building automated control system. The school is currently experiencing humidity problems, making it difficult to maintain a healthy learning environment. Our facility staff works hard to maintain these systems and keep a healthy learning environment. However, once the system reaches a certain point, replacement is the only way to correct the problems. We recognize this request does put us over the 10-year average allocation. However, with most counties, our needs far outweigh the funding. Additionally, it is anticipated that we will have contingency funding from projects that were bid last year and came in under budget. And it is the hopes that that funding and any other available funding will be applied to this much needed project as we continue forward within the CIP process. This concludes the Harford County Public Schools appeal for FY 2022. I would like to thank you for your time and collaboration through this process. And we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Questions for Harford County? Hearing none, thank you all very much. Please stay well. And we'll now move on and welcome County and Dr. Martirano this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Salmon and members of the IAC designee and staff, and a big Howard County hello to Senator Casemeyer. I'm Dr. Michael Martirano, Superintendent of the Howard County Public School System, and thank you for inviting us to present the challenges faced by our school system and to discuss in our FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program, better known as our CIP. I'm joined today by Mr. Scott Washington, our Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Daniel Lubley, my Director of Capital Planning and Construction. First of all, I want to thank you for your initial recommendation of the $20.7 million in state funding, which includes $15.8 million in general education and $4.9 million in EGRC funding. This recommendation represents approximately 53% of the total $38.9 million requested. We would like to make you aware of some of the local concerns as you continue to review the FY 2022 Capital Improvement Plan request. As you know, the driving force in much of our capital planning in Howard County is the need to accommodate enrollment growth in one of Maryland's fastest growing counties. Although we have experienced a temporary drop and dip in our enrollment this year related to the pandemic, enrollment has grown steadily over the past several years and is expected to continue into the foreseeable future. We anticipate adding more than 8,500 students to our total enrollment over the next decade. To accommodate projected growth, our 10-year long-range master plan provides for the addition of approximately 4,000 new seats. Last year, our system, as many of you know, our system completed a very comprehensive redistricting process to balance capacity utilization among our existing schools and to advance equity by addressing the distribution of students affected by poverty as measured by the participation in our free and reduced meals program. The implementation of this plan has brought 51 of our 74 comprehensive schools within the 90 to 110% capacity utilization targets, up from 42 schools previously. Simultaneously, the highest proportion of farms participation at any school has been reduced from a high of 68% to 52%, bringing 33 of our schools closer to the county's farm average, and we're very proud of our equity work. Our capital planning balances the need to provide additional classroom seats, especially in the fastest growing areas of our county, while we modernize and maintain our older schools to ensure safety and efficiency and to accommodate the new instructional priorities and the needs of our changing student populations. Our FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program includes requests for funds to continue with construction of the new high school number 13 in the southeastern portion of our county and the replacement of Talbot Springs Elementary School. We appreciate your continued support of these projects. We ask that you, however, reconsider the status of the following projects. 1, Hammond High School renovation addition. This is LEA priority number 3, 4. The project currently has a B status for planning and a C status for funding. We request that both be elevated to an A status and be fully funded. The project will renovate an existing aging facility and expand educational program spaces, including 6 additional classrooms, providing approximately 200 new seats, and add a COMAR-compliant health suite. Systemic upgrades will emphasize energy efficiency. Second, Bonnie Branch Middle School boiler. This is our LEA priority number 5. The project currently has a B status. We request that it receives an A status and be fully funded. The project will replace an existing 1998 boiler plant system with a new high-efficiency system. Third, Gorman Crossing Elementary School roof. This is LEA priority number 6. The project currently has a U status, and we request it receives an A status and be fully funded. The project will replace the original 1998 roof. State support is essential to enable our system to complete the construction and maintenance projects that are critical to addressing our enrollment growth needs while prolonging the life and aging facilities to avoid further strain on an already strained budget. We appreciate the support and cooperative relationship we have with your staff of the IAC, as well as we continue to work closely with them to constructively resolve the challenging issues facing our school system today and in the future. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share and discuss our concerns, and we will look forward to receiving favorable support for funding of the FY 2022 CIP request.
Thank you, Dr. Martorano. Are there questions for Howard County? All right, hearing none, thank you very much. Stay well, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to welcome Baltimore City and their presenters today. I see Cindy, good morning.
Good morning. And Lynette.
Good morning. Good morning. It's nice to see you both. And I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Lynette, Dr. Washington, to begin the presentation.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Salmon, the IC Commission members and designees, and also Mr. Gurrell. I want to take a few minutes just to introduce my team because we have a new person on our team. Again, I'm Lynette Washington. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Baltimore City Schools. I'm joined by Annie Zhao, who is our Deputy Chief Operating Officer for City Schools, and also Cynthia Smith, who is our Director for Design and Construction. So on behalf of Baltimore City Public Schools Board of Commission and also the CEO, I want to take time to thank you all for the opportunity to address the members of the IAC with the Baltimore City Public Schools fiscal year 2022 capital improvement priorities. We're here to appeal the IAC designee 75% FY 2022 CIP recommendations for City Schools. We're going to talk a little bit about and go in a little bit more detail of the 4 major projects that we want to appeal. I'm going to turn that over to Cindy, but before I do that, I also want to take the time to just say thank you for the $24.8 million recommended for City Schools FY 2022 CIP request, as well as the projected $33 million at 100% authorized funding. I do want to highlight 2 accomplishments for City Schools that we've been able to do with CIP funding. This past summer, we had the opportunity to open 2 net zero energy replacement schools, being Hollenberg Academy and Graceland Park, O'Donnell Heights Elementary Middle. We're really excited and proud of those 2 schools. And we're also excited to begin working with the school community as we go through an implementation plan to make those truly net zero schools, because it takes changes in behavior and practices from the school community. So we're excited about that. I also want to highlight the progress that we've made on the 5-year air conditioning plan. We're currently in the last year of the plan. So within our next school year, for school year 21-22, City Schools will have installed air conditioning in almost 75 buildings that were non-air conditioning buildings. And this is using both CIP funds and also part of the 21st Century Project that we've been able to move this work forward, and particularly with a heavy focus on the installation of vertical packaging. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Cindy Smith.
Good morning. So with much movement happening in the district, we want to continue to make our needs known for state support for improving our facilities. Per the staff recommendations to date, the request for all 4 of our major projects, which are Armistead Gardens, Marie Fairing, Early Elementary School, and the Northeast Building, were not recommended for funding approval and were given a status of C. As you know, state funding is critical for these projects, and it is vital that these projects receive at least a B status, if not fully funded, per our request, so that when funding is available, they may be able to proceed. Armistead Gardens, for the first project, is a renovation and addition project for which the IAC allocated planning approval in FY18. This is a vital project to alleviate the overcrowding at a school that is currently at approximately 220% utilization. The feasibility study has been completed for a renovation and addition. The planning approval was prior to the implementation of the gross area baseline adoption. However, the ed specs for this project has a size that is only 7% larger than the GAB, It must be noted, however, that the GAB calculation does not account for the specialized citywide special education programs that are located at the school and the size for those programs that must be accounted for in the GAB calculation and for which the enrollment must be accounted for at the school. This design project start was delayed due to COVID. However, we do plan to kick off the design of this project in March of 2021 to be ready to start construction in August of 2022. To keep with the schedule, we must have funding allocated in the FY22 and 22 CIP allocation. Marie G. Faring would be the next major project. This is a renovation and addition of a historic site that is adjacent to the existing building. For Marie G. Faring, the IAC allocated planning approval in the FY20 CIP. Again, this is another vital project for overcrowding because the school currently has a utilization of about 214%. We have completed a feasibility study for this project for a renovation and addition, and we did purchase the property adjacent to the school to be able to complete this project. Again, unfortunately, just like Armistead, the project design was delayed. Project design start was delayed because of COVID. However, we will be kicking it off in January to be able to start construction March of 2022. To be able to meet that March of 2022 schedule, however, we must have funding allocated in the FY 2022 CIP. Furley Elementary School is a school that has structural issues for which funding or planning approval was allocated in FY21 CIP. As I think you all are aware, this school is currently in a swing space and has been now for 3 years because of their structural issues at their former building. So this project is vital to enable them to get back to their building. The ed spec currently submitted for this is an elementary school with 678 students, and the size proposed is only 4.6% larger than the GAB. However, again, it must be noted that there are specialized citywide special education programs at this school for which the enrollment must be accounted for, and the GAB must be allowed to be accounted for as well. The issues letter did question the capacity of the school based on a current enrollment of 334 students. However, as we submitted, the actual enrollment at the school is 495 students and is growing at an exponential rate. Students can't be just shifted to the next adjacent schools for a variety of reasons, and adjusting adjacencies does not address the need that is still required for Furley seats. In addition, there are 428 Furley zone students who attend elsewhere and could return if there are seats available. We have documented the new school's effect at many of our newly built schools. For example, Fort Worthington, which we wanted to build larger due to students who actually lived in the zone and were not permitted to. And now 2 years after opening the building is already over capacity. We fully expect that to occur here and for those 428 students to start to return to their school. To be on track with the current request, the feasibility study did kick off this week. And the schedule is submitted in the IAC issues response letter for the project. Finally, our Northeast project is a major project, again, to allow a school to go back to their school. That school, which is Vanguard Collegiate, has been in their swing space now for 6+ years. Funding or planning approval was allocated in FY21 for this project so that we can get them back into their existing or their building as well. This project is intended to accommodate 591 middle school students and only one of 3 standalone middle schools in our district. In addition, it will accommodate 300 additional Priority 1 middle school choice seats, which are currently not placed during the choice process. And those students then have to be placed all over the district. And this will provide them a space within their own area of the town, of the city, to actually attend middle school. Completing this project will also allow for vacating the Thurgood Marshall building upon the completion of Furley as well, which will allow us to surplus the Thurgood Marshall building back to the city. We do understand that we had originally requested and intend to request some of this funding through a different funding source, which is tied to the school's construction bill passing, the Healthy Schools Funds. We will continue to move forward with the planning of this project in the meantime. We do understand that the state did not approve funding for Armistead and Furley and Northeast due to concerns of the enrollment projections that do not support the intended programs. Enrollment projections for city schools should be reviewed through a layered approach. At city schools, we aim to be data-driven. The enrollment projections and projected utilizations we have provided are an estimation, and this includes the context of individual schools, as well as neighborhood information and program data, which does include population, demographics, housing market information, etc. Additionally, we have specific goals for our school sizes to support grade continuation within the existing school, sustainable programming for the school program, and special education programming, among other things. We have held several meetings with the IAC staff and reviewed data that supports the increased enrollment at specific schools. However, we unfortunately are still in disagreement regarding the enrollment, and we would be happy to work with the IAC staff to continue to try to reach a more mutual understanding of our school enrollment and needs. I'm going to turn it over to Annie to do some next steps and closing.
Good morning. Thank you all very much. Happy to be joining you all this morning. And as Cindy said, I'll be discussing our next steps for all the major projects and just a brief closing. So in addition to our appeal, we respectfully request follow-up discussions, as mentioned earlier, related to the fiscal year 2022 CIP requests for the major projects, which were not recommended for approval. We would like to better understand how the state formulas, such as the gross area baseline and the total cost of ownership calculator, are used in making recommendations and enrollment projections. City Schools, as we mentioned earlier, is working to be very data-driven and invest in long-term projects that will benefit the community writ large. And so in keeping with being data-driven, we have aimed to be holistic in our inclusion of data sources like housing market and neighborhood information, as well as income levels and stability, which were all used to support our requested projects and why requests were made in particular neighborhoods. So we would like also to note that as you all have been strong supporters of local control for education, that a one-size-fits-all approach to these calculations may unintentionally present some challenges to the wide variety of LEAs all across our state. So we ask that you might consider a more customized approach that factors in the diversity of the needs, history, and students of our state, as well as of our jurisdiction. We ask that the IAC consider the distinct and unique challenges associated with operating a district like ours with aging facilities and funding constraints from our jurisdiction. As you know, unlike many other districts in Maryland of our similar size, by comparison, we receive about 1/3 less support from our local jurisdiction, while Baltimore City has increased support to city schools by a total of $6 million over the last 4 fiscal years. This has been very helpful and appreciated, but the needs are still quite significant in our jurisdiction. We, of course, understand your own budget constraints and the overall sort of budgetary environment and the challenges that you face in attempting to create fair standards for rural, suburban, and urban school districts all across the state. And so ask that you might consider providing some flexibility that would take into account the distinct context of each LEA when reviewing our request for approval. So in closing, City Schools just thanks you again for your continued support in addressing the facility needs of Baltimore City, and we appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, Baltimore City, for your presentation. Before we go to additional questions, Mr. Gorel, could you go back to the Furley School and explain, because we had discussed that early last year, and I want to make sure that everybody understands the situation that we have with that right now. So could you address that, please? You're muted, sir.
Thank you. We had identified funding last year, and we have it set aside so that Furley can move forward. It's not achieved that point of being able to move forward. There were some of the items that were recognized by the LEA currently. In fact, Madam Chair, you and the rest of the IACs have had extensive conversations with city schools and their leadership and staff, as well as legislators regarding the need for a solution of Furley. We absolutely all recognize it, and we're all working hard to get there. Local planning approval for the Furley project was supported by the IAC in fiscal year 2001. And so to go off and running was expected. I do understand the fiscal constraints that the LEA has, as well as others in enrollment. And I want to say very briefly that the gross area baseline, total cost of ownership do not drive enrollment. It's the opposite as we look at this. And trying to pin down that school, and we recognize that you are unique, how complex it is. You have a huge stock of schools, and we're trying to keep a utilization rate at around 86%. I met several months back with leadership at Baltimore City and established an easy way for us to do this. And I think we're almost there, where we create a projection based upon past success of city schools at closing schools and bettering their utilization. And we take that past trend and project it out 5 years so that on a school by school basis, we can work with Baltimore City schools to use the population that they feel are really needed. And they absolutely have better information than us. But then the following year, as we look to see how is it working out, and the year after that, if the utilization rate is creeping below 86%, then what that means for all of us is that we have to look at the next project about how we're going to keep it into line. It can't be something that creeps out of control, which is what happened and why we are in the situation that we're in now. So specifically, IAC identified funding and earmarked it for this project. It's not been allocated for any other purpose, and it will continue to be reserved for Furley. Specifically, the reserve funding is $5.43 million, which will certainly get the project moving. And I can give you the individual sources of that if you would like. COMAR regulation doesn't allow us to approve a funding approval request based upon a number of factors. We have to consider these. And those include progress on the project design, anticipated bid date, statewide measured needs against state funding. So I think the LEA in their own presentation have identified that they're not quite there yet on this project. But when they are there, we're going to be ready to go. These regulations are put in place to ensure that the state funding is utilized for projects ready for construction within the fiscal year of approval. Not the next year or the year after, but in the year of approval. And we've heard a number, it's not specific to Baltimore City. We've heard a number of LEAs come before you today, Madam Chair, and want to be funded even though they're not quite ready, or they have funding dates that are bid dates that are right before the end of the fiscal year, and therefore they wouldn't be able to expend the state dollars. And the reason is that we want to ensure that every dollar is put to use as quickly as possible to keep money flowing into the multitude of high needs. And you can see we're not even close to funding all of the needs throughout the state. And we want to move the money and have it go to work, improving situations and environments for children just as quickly as possible. I do want to acknowledge that this loss of buying power for no other reason besides helping kids is very expensive. And we have had projects that have been funded and not moved forward for years. And not just Baltimore City, the commission is aware of this, and it's expensive. The projects become more expensive, and then it takes more money where those same dollars could have been improving situations the year that they were available. I want to also acknowledge that Baltimore City, and as they have said, are in a unique situation where their local support to be able to allow them to get over that primary hurdle. Which planning is the most important part of a project, and they are constrained on their available dollars. It's something that maybe we could bring to the commission to talk about how that we could participate in funding for planning. I think it would help a lot of LEAs, particularly those that just don't have the funding, so that they can get their projects queued up and ready to go and fit into the system as we are. It will require a change in COMAR for us to be able to do that. So if the commission's interested, we can bring information and talk more about that. But the IAC procedures are very clear. That's all about the eligibility about this project. And at this time, we can't go forward. We certainly don't want to lose the confidence of all the other LEAs that fit within, even if the COMAR wasn't there. These are the policies and the way that the IAC does business, and for good reason. And these four projects all fall into the same boat. And again, I want to just close by saying when funding is available, we're ready to go. And just like we've done for a lot of other Baltimore City schools that have had to go to the side because they're not ready and we've moved money around to projects that are ready, we can do that. And so when that project's ready to go, we can make it go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think I would like, and let if anyone disagrees, I would like to investigate this idea of funding for planning. So I would appreciate if we could discuss that at an upcoming meeting and look at a potential change of COMAR, because I think that if we can be more proactive in that area, we can hopefully avoid these kinds of situations. I would like to do that. Other comments or questions on Baltimore City, or questions for Baltimore City on their presentation? Secretary Churchill.
You're muted, Secretary Churchill.
You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I got a very complicated audio problem here, so I didn't hear everything. I just was looking for clarification because I believe I heard Ms. Smith mention, and I just wanted to make sure, Fort Worthington as a part being linked to Furley. Maybe it was just an example of what was going on. Was that correct?
It was just an example. Yes, it was an example to explain the new schools effect that we're seeing across the district.
Okay, thank you. Because I believe that was one of your first schools under the 21st century program there. Okay, so thank you. That's all. I just wanted to make sure I had heard that right. Yep. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation today. It was good to see all of you. Please stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to move on to section 3 of our agenda today, which is the 75% capital improvement program approval. And I'd like to welcome Arabia Davis, who is our funding programs manager. And please note that these materials are included in pages 92 to 110 in your materials. So good morning, Arabia.
Good morning. Today we are recommending approval of 75% or $210 million of the preliminary capital budget for fiscal year 2022. As you've heard from the facility planners, there is a common challenge of not having enough funds to address the various needs for public school construction. A number of LEAs also expressed concern about the 10-year average and how the target allocation fluctuate from year to year, which indicates that a formulaic approach is needed to allow county officials the ability to properly plan their project submissions. I'd like to also point out that it's not just the lack of funding and the 10-year average that is hindering staff from being able to recommend approval. Some other key factors include scope and enrollment issues, as well as the absence of submission documents, as Kim touched on earlier today. Recommendations being presented to the commission were developed with the well-being of every student in mind. While we may not be able to meet the funding needs for every project, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The facilities assessment is the tool that can be used to help us get closer to identifying schools with the highest needs. If we could turn to page 94, the LEA modeling summary, I'd like to just point out, in order to project the 100% modeling this year, a new designation status of U was implemented. This code establishes a deadline for staff and facility planners to resolve outstanding issues and also allows staff to recommend funding if available while the project is still under review. When we compare columns B and D, you'll notice that several counties are being recommended for funding that exceeds their target allocations. For example, Calvert County's target allocation is $5 million. However, their cash flow needs for the Beach Elementary Replacement School is greater. To avoid Baltimore City's target allocation from coming in well below their target, full funding was necessary for priority number 16, HVAC project at Falstaff Elementary Middle School. While funding is not currently projected for the Suitland Elementary project in Prince George's County, our regional managers are working closely with local officials to address the enrollment concerns and the lack of design progress. should this project become available, prior year funding and EGRC dollars are available. To address the funding shortfall, $10.5 million was shaved from jurisdictions where outstanding issues were not anticipated to be resolved. $11.4 million was redistributed from the LEAs that submitted requests that came in far below their target allocation. Or in the case of Kent County, no project requests were submitted. Column C indicates the total funding requested. Based on the revised CIP submissions we received in late November and early December, and today's approval to terminate the contract and revise the state participation due to scope changes for the FY22 Winfield Elementary School project in Carroll County, these figures are expected to change. The changes are due to budget modifications, projects being swapped out and removed. We're working hard to ensure that these changes are reflected in the December CIP publication. Next, I'd like to focus on columns F, G, H, and I. Column F provides a count of the number of planning requests being recommended today. Since planning approval is generally not recommended in December without funding, and to be consistent with this policy, staff are requesting that approval for priority number 16, Gaithersburg Cluster Elementary School in Montgomery County, be deferred until the 100% round. Column G is counting the number of projects being recommended for funding. The calculations in this document reflect 55 projects. This number does not capture projects with a U status. The estimated project count is 64. Column H includes projected new authorization and projected funding through the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom program. As we begin to apply the county's prior year appropriations, some of these figures are subject to change. Column I represents the 75% recommendations. With that, I stand for questions, or if it's your preference, we can discuss specific projects.
Thank you, Arabia. Questions on the 75% recommendations on the CIP? All right, hearing none, thank you very much, Arabia. Can you make the motion that we need to approve, please?
Yes.
Eberhardt?
Yes, I have a question not about the 75%, but Baltimore City, their top 4 priorities, we did not, they're all marked as Cs, and their request was that they needed to get to Bs in order to make them be able to move forward. How do we do that? What do we have to do? Because I mean, the 2 of the schools are, at 200% capacity, and we can't, lose a generation of kids in those schools by being in such an overcrowded school. And it seemed like it wasn't about design, it was about this enrollment issue. And they provided an enormous amount of data in the material that's provided that seem to be able to justify if it's just enrollment.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It is design progress. Enrollment precedes design progress. Enrollment drives everything, and the grades that are served and the curriculum, as they rightly pointed out, drives everything about the school. But the design has not begun. This cycle will go on until May. So if they are able to correct the design progress, which they would absolutely need to do to make the schedule that they would like to meet, we can change the status of this from a C to a B anytime up to that point. So the clock doesn't run out. It's just where these sit right now. The design progress has not even begun.
Okay, could it go to an A? They would say we want to spend the money on this instead of on that?
If they had design and they could spend the money, again, we have competing Our recommendation to staff, the commission can absolutely do anything that it feels prudent, but our recommendation to staff will be that the dollars go to the projects that can do the most good, for the obvious reasons. If they are able to complete the design, bid the project, and be able to show X dollars that they can spend in fiscal year 22, and they wanted to give up other projects to do that, and this would be in addition to the dollars that, for instance, on Furley that we already have reserved. Yes, they can do that. And that is absolutely allowable within the total dollars that they have. That's why we did the 10-year average, so that they could make those kinds of decisions and not feel locked in and know that they don't have to compete and against somebody else. I just need to say that just because it adds in the clarification, the 10-year average was only a starting place so that we could predict what dollars are available for good planning. Baltimore City is behind the gun because they haven't done the planning. Maybe if they had planning dollars, they would have been able to go further along. But if we get to formulaic funding along with planning dollars, then this kind of conversation should become a thing of the past, honestly. But yes, they can move to an A. There are decisions they could be made. In my professional opinion, I don't see how that they're going to be able to do that at this point.
Okay, and Northeast is the same, the design issue, or is it enrollment?
All four of their top priorities, Madam Chair and Ms. Everhart.
Okay. And my other comment is that the rolling 10-year average is based on just population, not the needs of the schools across the state. And that's what the state work group is going to be looking at in this assessment that you've talked about. That's going to change the way we figure out this money.
The Madam Chair, and Ms. Eberhardt, my understanding as I look at the legislation that hasn't passed is that there might be a separate fund called a priority fund. And that fund would be potentially in addition to this. This is up to the legislature and the governor to determine. And at which case, the highest needs, if the legislature and the governor and the workforces that work groups that make recommendations determine, the highest needs would draw from the highest need from that fund, which would be separate from the CIP fund that we're talking about now.
But there's not COMAR or legislation that require that we do this 10-year rolling average.
Oh, no, Madam Chair. The reason that we do, and Ms. Eberhardt, the reason that we do the 10-year average is because nobody could tell what they were going to get. And there was, people would stand in line hoping that if they, I'll use the word beg, more than somebody else or show more, disgusting pictures of the conditions, that they could get money that another LEA could get. And there was always money moving around, shifting and not trying to make projects work. As the needs increased year after year after year, and that gap between available dollars, that shifting money around wasn't working, and therefore the frustration and the begathon, it was called, in fact, there was a name to it, became more and more intense. The reason for the 10-year average was to give a picture so that the planners could figure out what projects they could bring forward, talk to their local governance and say, here's what we have coming forward. If you give us X dollars, then we can expect Y dollars from the state, and they can match these things up, because those conversations should occur years before they come to us for the CIP allocations.
And just one last thing, Dr. Salmon, I do support your recommendation that we look at exploring COMAR for being able to use money for design issues, since this seems to be an issue with these 4 high priority schools, not just here, but I'm sure in some other counties also.
Thank you, Ms. Eberhardt. I did see a lot of our members shaking their heads when I made that recommendation, so I appreciate your bringing that up. So I'm sure that our staff can proceed with that for the upcoming meeting that we have. So thank you very much. Arabia, can you read the motion, please?
Yes, the motion is to approve the fiscal year 2022 75% capital improvement program allocations and planning approvals for each school system and the Maryland School for the Blind, as shown in the attached summary of project requests and recommendations. Authorizing the staff to make adjustments to project allocations to avoid over and underfunding of a project.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I think that was Senator Lala seconded. All in favor, please show your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Ms. Everett, are you abstaining?
My concern is I would like to see some kind of statement that what Bob said about if the city moved, was able to get design projects done, that they would be able to rearrange their project. So I don't see that anyplace in our motion.
Well, I think that'll be part of our minutes, Ms. Everhart. So I think that'll be documented in that fashion.
Okay, then I'll change to a.
All right, so let's do this vote again. Just want to make sure we have it on the record correctly. All in favor, please say and show aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Sean?
The motion carried. You had 8 in favor and 1 absent.
I think Ms. Eberhardt changed hers back to being in favor, correct, Ms. Eberhardt?
Yes.
I'm sorry, you have 1 absent. You have 1 member absent.
All right, but the rest were in favor, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Arabia and team.
Thank you.
Good work as always. I know this is very, very engaging and very complex work. So we do appreciate all of the back and forth that you've had with all of our counties and getting this information to us in this fashion. And we'll look forward to the upcoming additional funding that we'll approve throughout this cycle. And now I'd like to invite Jamie to give us our update from Baltimore City. Good morning again, Jamie.
Good morning again. Thanks, Madam Chair and members of the commission. It's really good to see you all. I'm before you to deliver item 9, an informational item, a status report on Baltimore City, extra $15 million for HVAC projects. This item can be found on page 35 and 36 of your meeting agenda. And this information is all current as of the 1st of December, 2020. Done a lot of work and a lot of thinking this morning, and I think this is a nice way to end with a discussion on progress, because there's a lot of progress going on. Just to jump right in on the project phase, currently we have 1 project remaining in design, with 2 in procurement for construction, 7 in construction, and 9 operational. That's up 1 from last month. Margaret Brett, PK through 8, the cooling tower and pipe replacement project is now operational. It's really amazing how far we've come on that one. Approved on the 13th of December, 2018. Then design was procured, design was completed, and a contractor was procured and under contract approved December 13th, 2019. And so now, in December 10th, 2020, this project is now operational. So that is good news. Currently, we have 1 project that is behind more than 2 months. That is Harlan Park. We have 3 projects that are behind less than 2 months, 3 that are on time, 3 that are ahead, and again, 9 are operational. And as far as contract status goes, at this time, we have 100% of the $15 million allocated to 19 projects. 10.370608 dollars contracted, that's 69% of the $15 million. And we have $5.265083 expended. So that's 35% of the $15 million for extra HVAC projects has been spent. That concludes my update. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Jamie. Excellent news. Questions for Jamie or comments? Secretary McCord.
Yeah, just to comment, thanks again for your efforts on this and for being able to display it this way, that we can see at a glance what's going on. There's a lot of work that goes beyond what we can see here. And I wanted to acknowledge that on your behalf and on behalf of the school system that's working with you to do this. So a lot of work goes into this. And I call it, just my language, I call this our cool chart. And it's the air conditioning chart for volunteers. It's a cool chart. But it's a very cool chart that actually represents a lot of hard work. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. So thank you.
Thank you, Secretary McCord. If you remember at our previous meeting, we had a lot of great sayings that we are now using in our lingo. So now we have another one that this is a cool chart. So thank you for giving us one today. I appreciate that. Other comments or questions from anyone for Jamie? All right, excellent work, Jamie. Thank you for the collaboration, and I'll just second the comments of Secretary McCord. At this point, we have completed our agenda for today, and I'd like to ask if anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn. All right, Mr. Gibbons has made a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Senator Chair. In favor, please say aye. 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 Anybody want to stay on? Okay. Hearing none, everyone please stay safe and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members.
Thank you.